Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
790 KBC. This is Frank Mottek. We're doing it live right here now, weekday afternoons at 4 o'clock. We get right down to business here with the news-driven hour. Doing more in 2024 now at 4 in the afternoon. Mottek on Money, live on the air right here on 790 KBC. Streaming live online at kbc.com worldwide and on-demand podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. The sun shining again here in Southern California. Chamber of Commerce weather once again here in the Los Angeles area, but a partly cloudy kind of a day on Wall Street today with stocks ending the day mixed. The Dow coming off its all-time high, down nearly 100 points, back below 38,000, which it cleared for the first time yesterday. We're back to 37,905. The S&P 500 did move higher to a new all-time high of 14 points. The Nasdaq rose 66 points, its highest seen since January 4th of 2022. The Dow coming down from the record highs as we got the latest earnings news and some reaction here. We see the Dow pullback linked to 3M's stock sell-off after a profit warning coming in today. Johnson & Johnson shares also moved lower. That's also part of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, although the company posted stronger than expected earnings for the fourth quarter. Nervous time in the Middle East with the latest military action involving the U.S. going after Iranian targets in Iraq. We see the price of oil moving higher today, actually coming off its high point of the year during the trading day, down 39 cents at 74.37 a barrel. A nervous time, though, in after-hours trading here on these latest reports. We see Brent crude in London had pulled back 51 cents today to settle at 79.55 a barrel, also coming off its high point of the year. We did see Verizon shares take a plunge today, down about 42%. Verizon shares actually ended higher today after earnings showed that revenue coming in higher than expected. It ended up 7%. It was Vroom shares that were down 42%. Also starts with a V here. Vroom, the automotive e-commerce company, said it was winding down its online used car sales business. That company said it would keep its auto financing and analytics lines of business, though. So Vroom shares, the ticker symbol on that one, VRM, down 42.5% on that latest news. We're watching what's happening as well in New Hampshire with the New Hampshire primary, keeping an eye on what's happening there on the presidential primary this evening. Last night, the four top candidates in the race for the California U.S. Senate seat took the stage in an event put together by Fox 11, USC, and Politico. 27 candidates in total are running for the seat vacated by the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. Coming up later this hour, I'll be joined by Republican Eric Early, who is running in the California U.S. Senate race. He had joined with another candidate, Christina Pascucci, in issuing a statement protesting the decision to limit the number of candidates on stage at the debate last night. Eric Early will be joining me live later this hour. The head of the United Auto Workers Union says the government should make up for pensions if corporations will not pay for them. Shawn Fain's comments today coming during the union's annual conference in Washington, where they're discussing policy priorities. The UAW has yet to endorse a candidate for president, but Fain suggests an endorsement could come next week. You may recall President Biden walked with UAW strikers this past year. The UAW's own report suggests the move to electric vehicles, by the way, could risk union jobs. Meanwhile, a bombshell report this week says the Biden administration and Department of Energy colluded to rig estimated gas mileage from EVs to look 7 times more efficient than gas-powered cars. But they're not, according to the Wall Street Journal. I'll discuss that this hour with our go-to car expert, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. Tough news today at the Los Angeles Times. Big layoff announcements making it official today. There'd been buzz that this was coming, and it looks like the tough announcement did come today. The Los Angeles Times, the largest newspaper here in California and one of the biggest in the country, hit with a heavy round of layoffs. The move to terminate more than 110 positions within the LA Times has been widely rumored for several weeks, even prompting a one-day walkout protest last week from journalists who work at the LA Times. But the scale of the layoffs not known until this morning. labor issues at the LA Times, now also testing the mettle of its owner, Los Angeles billionaire Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. But Soon-Shiong and fellow fund investors in his immunity bio are facing a much costlier issue. This is the subject of an article in the Investors Business Daily, the authoritative business publication. And joining us live now is Matt KRANTZ, Finance and Management Editor for Investors Business Daily. Matt, thanks very much for taking the call. Happy New Year to you. And first of all, on the market action here, I want to get your reaction to the Dow coming off its all-time high and the S&P 500 at a record high here. So we have a record-shattering day here, and want to talk to you certainly about what's happening at the LA Times and the owner, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. But take it from the top and give us your reaction to the latest news here.
Yeah, so I think the great news is the S&P 500. Look at what we just had. We had a banner year last year, up 20-some%. Some people thought there's no way it can repeat, and here we are, not just repeating, but it's actually kind of outpacing the technology. Well, let's look at the S&P 500 already this year. We're not even into February, and we're up over 2%. That's pretty amazing. So off to a great start in technology, which everyone thought was going to kind of roll over, is doing everything but rolling over. It's rolling higher. The technology select sector spider ETF, the XLK, is up, almost 5% already this year. That's incredible. That's a 50% gain in a year.
That is amazing. We're on the air live with Matt KRANTZ from Investors Business Daily, and we had that nice rally late last year as inflation supposedly cooled. We also saw gold hit an all-time high late last year. It's still hovering above $2,000 an ounce here at the moment, and hopes that the Fed will be throttling back on interest rates at some point this year. By the way, bond yields ticked higher today. The yield on the 10-year note back up to 4.14%. That's the one that impacts the fixed rate mortgage rates. On all those important subjects here, and also the Fed, of course, trying to orchestrate a soft landing for the economy. What does the market see here that a lot of people didn't? Are we heading for a soft landing, and what's the outlook here based on the market action here?
I think a lot of people are afraid to say soft landing because it doesn't usually happen. We usually get a hard landing, and so no, I don't think anyone wants to jinx it, which is very nice of them. But we do know that the Fed's not the story right now. Before, the Fed pretty much drove the market last year, not completely because we had the AI boom as well, but that was the big story. This year, they're kind of out of the picture for now. There's actually some countries in the world that were very early to raise rates that are now cutting rates around the world. So that could be what's in store. The bond market is actually signaling a little bit of that. I like to look at the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF, which is the BND ETF. It's down about 2% this year, actually 1.3% this year, 2% over 1 year. So, rates are not the frenzy that they were last year.
All right, and the other big news, it was just hard to believe, it was just about a week ago that we got those Bitcoin ETFs, and Bitcoin was riding high heading into the new year, and ahead of that big ETF approval by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and now Bitcoin is back below 40,000 here after getting closer to 50 just recently. What about these Bitcoin ETFs and the reaction we've seen in the price of Bitcoin?
I love it. It's a classic sell the news. So everyone that was bullish on Bitcoin last year or the year before, even the year before, said just you wait until these become ETFs. These are going to become a major asset class, and the stock price is going to go to the moon, was the expression at the time. Well, that was baked in, obviously. Bitcoin's down. It's down about 7% this year to date. There are 11 or 13 of these new ETFs. Most of them aren't getting any flows whatsoever. A couple of them are pulling ahead. I do think it's definitely a coming of age for the Bitcoin phenomenon, but this is not the bullish back to the races gunshot that people thought it was going to be.
I don't know if you saw the report, but apparently the Bitcoin ETFs have exceeded the market value of silver ETFs. So certainly it has become a big asset class as far as ETFs are concerned.
Yes, there's a lot of people that did want to buy them. That this is their excuse to buy them. But I think the price of Bitcoin itself, that was already kind of baked in. I'm going to be really interested to see what happens to gold. Is gold going to get supplanted as kind of the store of value? It's down 2% this year. That's going to be really interesting because Bitcoin has not behaved like a store of value. It should have it behaved very differently in the past years, but so we'll have to see how it matures.
All right, and the other big story, following up on your excellent article in Investors Business Daily, the tough news from the LA Times today that, yes, indeed, they are cutting staff by about 20% here, eliminating more than 110 positions, according to the reports we have here. And as you noted in your Investors Business Daily article, labor issues at the LA Times are testing the mettle of its owner, billionaire Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's based here in Los Angeles. But Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong and fellow fund investors in his Immunity Bio company are facing a much costlier issue. Tell us what we need to know about this biotech company run by Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, and the value of the stock value of the company has basically crashed in recent years. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think when the LA Times got purchased, people kind of looked at this situation.
Get an inside look at Hollywood with Michael Rosenbaum.
Let's get inside of Jennifer Love Hewitt.
It's dangerous, I think, to say to women, you can't look like you're not 22 to me anymore because I don't know how to take that. Okay, well, that's your problem because I'm 44. This is what I look like. By the way, she was a looker. Like, congratulations to that 23 or 25.
But I'm a different person now.
You know?
Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, wherever you listen.
What companies deserve your hard-earned dollar? Which would you want to work for? How can you know if they share your values? Just ask us. Just Capital is a nonprofit that tracks who really means business in supporting workers, customers, communities, the environment, and shareholders. We measure progress, track success, and help them be better. When you see the Just Capital seal, you know what's real, because just business is better business. Visit justcapital.com to learn who makes your dollar count.
Situation is a lot like Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post. You have a entrepreneur in a tech-related industry worth billions of dollars and having all this stock in a rising company. And that was the case with Jeff Bezos. You know, Amazon is doing probably better than ever. But the opposite has happened at this company owned by the LA Times owner, Immunity Bio. It's in complete free fall. It's ticked up a little bit this year, but it's down 91% since it started trading in March of 2021. That is wiped out $23 billion in market value based on the current number of shares outstanding. And the owner himself is taking it on the chin. He, unlike Bezos, who has been lightening up his load in Amazon, he still owns 40% of this company. So he alone has lost $10 billion. So, and it's interesting, too, because it's not just him. There's some big owners in here like Vanguard and BlackRock. Granted, these losses for them aren't a big deal, but it's still, you know, it adds up and doesn't reflect well. So this is just kind of more pain because I think what happened was kind of like Elon Musk, right? When he has trouble with X, he dips into his SpaceX kitty or he dips into his Tesla kitty. Well, that's not going to happen with Immunity Bio.
All right. Last time I looked, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong was at or near the top of the wealthiest Angelenos, right?
Yeah, but you know, those lists change all the time, and you know, when you lose $10 billion in a couple of years, it's definitely going to hurt you a little bit.
I believe he still is at the top despite these losses. So we'll keep an eye on that. But certainly a sad day for those at the LA Times, which has been having difficulty with circulation and readership and so forth, and now comes this financial crisis, as was stated in the statement that came out with the announcement today.
And I think that if he was making lots and lots of money on his company, he'd be more willing. And I don't want to speak for him; I don't know him. But I think he'd be more willing, kind of just willing to kind of shore up the losses. Kind of like what we were saying with Elon Musk, what he does with Tesla, a little bit with X. But when you're losing money that fast, it kind of changes the mood a little bit.
All right, and the company that you're speaking of is based in San Diego, right? Works on therapies and vaccines to fight cancer and infections. Of course, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's also a medical doctor, by the way, a big thinker. Certainly, we've had many interactions with him over the years, and Certainly an amazing guy in the medical front, and has created a fortune with his various entrepreneurial enterprises and medical research. What do we need to know about this company and the future of this company?
Yeah, I think it's a hot area, which is a little bit concerning because, they're working on vaccines and other treatments for these diseases that are very difficult to treat, which is kind of a very hot area right now in the market. In fact, it's hot everywhere. They are tearing down the Westside Pavilion Mall. UCLA is building a giant center for immunology, which is kind of reflective of how important this area of research is. With that said, this company is not expected to make a dime until 2027. It's just not growing. The revenues are very small. I know that's kind of the case. That's generally the case with biotech. I understand that. But this is a company that was worth billions and billions of dollars just 3 years ago, and it does not have the fundamentals to back it up in a market that's kind of crying for the types of products and services that they provide. So, again, I don't want to say that they're not going to make it. I have no idea. I mean, he is a smart guy. He's bound to figure it out, but it's bound to also kind of distract him from the LA Times. Yeah.
We used to have many interviews, and he's throttled back on his granting of interviews, which is unfortunate. Always enjoyed speaking with him, and hopefully we'll have the chance to do that again at some point, as I'm sure hopefully you will as well. But thanks for laying it out there in Investors Business Daily, this important aspect of what's apparently affecting his entire empire, including the LA Times, with that big layoff announcement today and an announcement of a financial crisis there. And now his Immunity Bio company, value of that company has crashed 91% since trading started on March 10th of 2021. On the air live with Matt KRANTZ from Investors Business Daily, zooming out to the other media stocks, of course, which got a lot of attention and got hammered last year when we had the strikes in Hollywood and the total shutdown of Hollywood with the actors' strike and the writers' strike and all that. How are the media names looking at this point?
They're not looking great. Disney is kind of my favorite to watch, and it's up a little bit this year. It's up about 4% this year, but we got to keep in mind it's down 11% over a year's time. That's while even as the consumer discretionary sector is up 23% during that time. It's an industry that's combating streaming. It can't seem to win out the right strategy. You either play along and have huge losses building out these networks and trying to compete heads on with Netflix, which had great numbers today, or you kind of ignore it and hope it goes away and hope people return to the theaters, which I just don't think it's going to happen. So it's kind of a tough spot to be in. Bob Iger's another smart guy in town. I'm sure he can figure it out, but this is a much different company that he's taking over now than what he handed over when he left the first time.
All right, at this point, you're live with Matt KRANTZ from Investors Business Daily with the S&P 500 at a record high, the Dow just below its all-time high achieved yesterday and blew past 38K for the first time, just below that here right now. What are your market monitors saying about where this thing goes from here, Matt, and any specific places where they're looking to put money now and or take it off the table?
Yeah, the place to watch is technology. It was supposed to roll over, and it started to roll over in the beginning of this year. And we do have turnover. So Microsoft surpassed Apple briefly. I don't know if it did today, but over in terms of market value. So those 7 companies that are very tech-focused are just continue to drive the market, which is a very kind of surprising in many respects because they did so well last year. Second up is communication services. That's really Facebook and Google, and those companies are also outperforming. This year, they're up over 4% as well. So it's going to be really interesting if we get a repeat of 2023 and 2024 when you have just a handful of tech-related stocks pulling the whole market along. That would be pretty fascinating.
All right, Matt. Well, wish we had more time. We'll have to stop there. Thanks very much for taking the call here today. Again, I would encourage everyone to check out Matt KRANTZ's latest article about Dr. Patrick Sung Shang and his company Immunity Bio and the latest Investors Business Daily. Matt KRANTZ with Investors Business Daily. Thank you very much, Matt, for joining us. We wish you all there a great new year, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much. Matt KRANTZ live with us here. And by the way, number one, according to the LA Business Journal, number one of wealthiest Angelenos, yep, it is Dr. Patrick Sung Shang. Number two, John Tu. Number three, Stuart and Linda Resnick. They're the ones that own Palm Wonderful, the pomegranate juice company. Number four is Ed Roski Jr. And number five, Edith Broad. The price of gold today moving up by nearly $4 at $2,029.40. Oil and after hours moving higher by 13 cents at $74.50 on the latest reports of U.S. military action against Iranian-backed targets in Iraq. The yield on the 10-year note is back up to 4.14%. Bitcoin up about 600, back to 39,842. Ethereum up $30 at 22.35, and we see Doge at 8 cents. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good afternoon. We are doing it live here in the 4 o'clock hour now, doing more in 2024 at 4 in the afternoon. Mottek On Money live on the air here in 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast for you at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. President Trump aiming to knock ex-South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley out of the race for the GOP presidential nomination in today's New Hampshire primary. It looks like the polls are closing this hour in New Hampshire. Will be completely closed by, the next half hour or so. Former President Trump's march toward the Republican Party's presidential nomination, by the way, has sparked an historic surge in shares of Digital World Acquisition Corporation. That's the company taking President Trump's media company public. The special purpose acquisition company that has taken the spotlight in recent years has seen a surge as he gets closer to the 2024 GOP nomination. We're watching what's happening in New Hampshire and also, of course, what's happening here in California. Last night, the four top candidates in the race for the California U.S. Senate seat took the stage in an event put together by Fox 11, USC, and Politico. 27 candidates are running for the seat vacated by the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. Joining us live now is Republican Eric Early, who is running in the California U.S. Senate race. He had joined with another candidate, Christina Pascucci, in issuing a statement protesting the decision to limit the number of candidates on the stage last night at the debate. Eric Early, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always great being with you, Frank.
Thank you very much. And first of all, your reaction to what you heard among those four candidates last night and your message had you been up there last evening.
Well, that debate was largely a joke, frankly. You had three far-left Democrats, the deviant Adam Schiff, the other ones, Katie Porter and Barbara Lee. And then you have a Joe Biden Republican who is clearly not ready for prime time. Once a great baseball player, now a terrible political candidate, Steve Garvey. And, the reason I had complained about not being in that debate is the two organizations running it, Politico and the USC School.
We're all juggling life, a career, and trying to build a little bit of wealth. The Brown Ambition podcast with host Mandy and Tiffany the Budgetnista can help.
When it comes to financial stuff, gather friends, confidants as you go along who are on the same path as you, because family is amazing, but family doesn't always understand the journey that we're on because they have their separate journeys. So I just feel like the more voices you have, whether it's hours from listening to the podcast, we can be like your big sister friends.
Brown Ambition,
wherever you listen.
Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
Of politics, they had done a poll a couple weeks ago. There's over 25 candidates in this race, and according to their poll, I came in fifth place. And what did those two outfits do? They're both very left-leaning. They decided to only let the top four on the debate stage. I'm not saying let all 25 plus on, but I was the fifth one. I'm the major Trump supporting candidate in this race, and they did not want my voice on that stage. And that's why we saw yesterday really largely a disaster. 3 crazed far left hyenas going nuts, browbeating, Garvey into submission, and it wasn't a pretty picture.
On the air live with Eric Early, candidate for the U.S. Senate seat here in California. Zooming out now to the big picture here, we understand that the U.S. military has just taken action against Iranian-backed targets in Iraq. Obviously, what's happening in the Middle East and the Red Sea and throughout the Persian Gulf region very much in focus. Give us your reaction to this important news that's breaking here, and your message if you take the U.S. Senate seat, how you would deal with these crises at the moment.
I support this action that was taken. We've got these goat herders, the Houthis, daring to attack us and our friends over there in these important sea lanes. The Houthis deserve everything we should be giving them, and it should be a lot harder, frankly, than the Biden administration is attacking them. And, with respect to the Middle East situation generally, I totally support Israel. Hamas is a death cult. Hamas has to be destroyed, and the ones who are calling the shots for Hamas, these Iranian mullahs. I'm not talking about the vast majority of the Iranian people can't stand that mullah regime, but these Iranian mullahs who are from another century, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, they have to be dealt with. So I do support this, and I absolutely support our military. They're the ones in harm's way. I've got several very close family members in the military, and my dad was a Marine in combat. We have to stand up, stick up for our military, but these people that are being attacked right now that you just mentioned, they want to see Western civilization destroyed. It really is a battle of good versus evil, and we cannot let that happen.
On the air live with Republican Eric Early, candidate for the U.S. Senate seat here in California. Another big issue certainly for people closer to home here is the crime situation. I don't know if you heard the big layoffs at the L.A. Times, by the way. They had just endorsed L.A. County District Attorney George Gascon, by the way. Crime very much a big subject of discussion here for the business audience. How would you tackle crime here in California?
Well, Frank, I'm the toughest on crime in this race. George Gascon is a disaster. The L.A. Times, by the way, this is a perfect example of the statement, go woke, go broke. When Trump got elected back in 2016, the L.A. Times immediately went after him, and they never stopped. They kept up with the Adam Schiff, the Russia hoax congressman party line, and they're feeling the consequences of being as far left as possible. I'm the only candidate fighting. When it comes to crime. If you're going to commit crime, especially violent crime, there has to be punishment. And we're living in a day and age now where the people who rule our state, and unfortunately so many other parts of this country, don't believe in punishment. I have what I call the I's: immigration, inflation, indoctrination, incarceration. Immigration, we should be sending our military, if need be, to the southern border. We have to stop the invasion. 7 or 8 million plus and counting. It just keeps coming in. We've got to stop it. Inflation, I believe in drilling. I'm a huge supporter of the fossil fuel industry. You bring down the cost of a barrel of gas, barrel of oil, the cost of everything else across the board goes down. We have to be energy independent again. Indoctrination, these people on the far left know exactly what they're doing, Frank. They've taken the brains of our kids, starting now in kindergarten. It used to be only in college. Now they're starting kindergarten, and it's all about dividing the kids by race. This sexual outrage, that gender fluidity stuff that they're starting to pummel on 5 and 6 year olds, got to be stopped. And they're teaching kids to really hate America. We're all a bunch, according to them, we're oppressors and colonizers and occupiers. There should be no question where these really maniacs, these Antifa, these BLM, and now this latest round that's demonstrating in support of Hamas come from. I mean, the latest round demonstrating in support of Hamas 2 years ago, they called themselves Antifa. They just changed their clothes. They all hate America. We've got to get back our kids' education and incarceration. You heard a little bit what I had to say about it. And these are all the reasons why, Frank, why the politicos and the USC, whatever it's called, Dornsife School of Politics, both very far left-leaning organizations, did not allow me on that debate stage yesterday.
Well, thanks for making your voice heard this evening. We do appreciate it and look forward to more conversations as we get closer to the election, and hopefully you'll be included in other forums. And appreciate you joining us here this afternoon. Now that is Republican Eric Early, who is running in the California U.S. Senate race. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Frank. I need everybody's vote. Ballots start being mailed out in less than 2 weeks.
Isn't that? Well, big news in the electric vehicle business, kind of a bombshell report, according to the Wall Street Journal, that the Biden administration and the Department of Energy colluded to rig estimated gas mileage from electric vehicles to look 7 times more efficient than gas-powered cars. But they're not, according to that Wall Street Journal report. Joining us live now, our go-to car expert, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach, and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, thanks very much for taking the call. Saw your social media postings on this, and indeed it is a bombshell. Take it from the top and tell us what we need to know about this revelation.
Well, it really is a bombshell. The Department of Energy is changing estimated gas range for electric vehicles. So what you found originally is that gasoline-powered cars get a certain fuel economy. They do the standards through the EPA. But in the energy bill, buried in Chapter 65, deep, like 32,000, page 32,000, of course, they always hide it, there's a multiplier of 6.67. So what does that mean? So that means that if your car got 65 miles per gallon, which would be the same as a Toyota Prius, for example, the new one that just won North American Car of the Year, you could then look at an EV and it would say on its window sticker 430 mpge. So consumers would assume that the range was longer. But the interesting thing is car manufacturers knew about it as well as the government. And they're continuing to push this in the Department of Transportation, even though it's illegal, to lie to consumers, essentially. They've been scammed, and consumers are pretty peeved because they're taking their tax dollars. But there's a lot more to this. So when you start looking a little deeper into it and you go, okay, I feel I've been deceived. Okay, that's one piece of the pie. But part of this ruling that's listed in Journal 65 was the fact that it was allowing for carbon credits. So who made money off of that? Well, the only electric car company that made money was Tesla. And what you would do is get 7 carbon credits for each car, turn around and sell them to the other car manufacturers to raise their EPA and so they wouldn't get fined by the California Air Research Board and by the federal EPA. So this is interesting timing. I mean, the fact that it was buried on page 36,987 in the Federal Registry, if you'd like to look, which is volume 65, it says it's totally lacks legal support and it shouldn't even be in there. And actually it was put in, which I found interesting, doing some additional research during the Clinton administration in July of 2000. And they did it for corporate average fuel economies. So what's interesting about the whole thing is why consumers think, okay, well, how does this affect me? Well, those carbon credits are your tax dollars. Those tax dollars were given to Tesla. He was using them to sell those carbon credits to other companies so that they wouldn't be fined additional fees. So your tax dollars are being used to fund the car companies, to fund Tesla. And again, that's why a lot of customers are mad. So how this is unfolded is, besides the fact that people are pretty angry about it and the federal government has still not removed it, this whole carbon credit thing has become a scam and consumers are very upset about it. And this is where you got to talk to your elected officials. I guess the bottom line is, who actually knew about this? Did the governor know about it? Did car manufacturers know about it? And that's the old question. But you know who is noticing it? Is the lawyers. They're already lawyering up. I had calls the moment this thing came out in the Wall Street Journal asking me about electric vehicles and sales and everything, because the lawyers are trying to find people already who are dissatisfied with electric cars because they purchased them thinking they would get something, and they didn't get the charging. They didn't get the infrastructure. They're really upset about this. Some people are. Some people don't care. So it looks like instead of seeing, is this, someone that went to Camp Lejeune, you might be seeing commercials in the very near future saying, do you know someone who bought an electric car? But on top of all of this, I'm at a Toyota Lexus event right now, and I talked to one of the executives, and I said, what do you think of this? And this is the interesting thing. He says, this is why we don't have all electric cars. We have one electric car, the DZ4X, but the rest of the lineup is still gas and hybrid. And I find that very interesting that Toyota is really the only car manufacturer that is setting the correct record by making a mixture of cars for consumers.
Yep.
Even the new Lexus GX, which I'm driving right now, as we're test driving here in Tucson, Arizona, you'll note that it's gasoline powered. And I find that interesting because the demand is high.
Another big story, the head of the UAW, the United Auto Workers Union, said the government should make up for pensions if corporations won't pay for them. What's your reaction to those comments from Sean Fain, the head of the UAW?
That's absurd, in my opinion. The fact that why should everybody in the entire country with our tax dollars fund the UAW because they use their money for whatever other thing, whether it be, and I know they use it to support their members, but they also have a gigantic homes and they have a lot of, big facilities, and there's no need for all of that. You could do it on a smaller footprint, but they want us, the U.S. tax dollar, to reimburse them so that their pension funds are full. I think that belongs to them. It doesn't, or the company they're working with, that has nothing to do with every other person who is not a union member who shouldn't have to fund this. And Sean Fain also said that whatever presidential candidate would support his efforts would be the one that he would stand behind. Of course, because then they can use the money that you pay as a member for whatever they're using it for instead of for the members who have paid into it. And I think that's absolutely wrong. It brings us to very much North Korea, China, and other countries that follow that pattern.
Lauren, thank you very much for taking the call here and that comprehensive update here. Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast, live with us here on Mottek on Money on 790 KABC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with our Legal Eagle Royal Oaks coming your way next. Catch you again tomorrow afternoon at 4, Mottek on Money, 790 KABC.
The Rolling Stone Music Now podcast gets inside the biggest stories with Rolling Stone senior writer Brian Hyatt, joined by Bob Harvia from 60 Songs to Explain the 90s.
There's no freedom rock yet of the 90s.
It's coming, though, from 2010 to 2019. And the top 10 is Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. So the freedom rock of the 90s is the grunge Mount Rushmore.
Rolling Stone Music Now, wherever you listen.